Good evening. Tonight, The Mummy. But first, as usual, a little bit about the other movies that were on the docket for today, which were, in order, Leprechaun, Leprechaun 2, Leprechaun 3, and Leprechaun 4 in Space. There are three more Leprechaun movies, In the Hood, Back in the Hood, and Origins, but we didn't have time, and we figured we'd watch the In the Hood movies back to back at some point later, and maybe never watch Origins because it doesn't have Warwick Davis, and Warwick Davis is the main reason to watch these movies. Um, they were surprisingly, figured they'd at least be fun. I actually liked them, and would probably watch most of them again. They weren't great. They weren't the top monster movies of all time, but they weren't just completely throwaway. Again, most of the delight was in seeing Warwick Davis just go crazy and seem to have a lot of fun, and occasionally watching one or two of the other actors rise to his level. But the practical effects, the fact that he wasn't just Warwick Davis wearing dots and then a digital thing all over him, they actually made him up. I could look and see, and I couldn't decide for a little bit whether the leprechaun's teeth were supposed to be grimy or if that was just how they made up the teeth to make them look pointed. I think they were making them look pointed, but it was real physical makeup and it was real stuff there, so that was a big part of it. But yeah, those were surprisingly fun, especially the in space one. So recommended if you have the time and the interest. Warwick Davis is his collection of work is quite something. But mainly, it led up to The Mummy, and this was probably my least favorite of the 8 when I got the VHS set back in 2000, 2001, whenever that was, because unlike Frankenstein, which has a novel and which the story is in the zeitgeist at all times, same with Dracula and Phantom of the Opera, plus by then for me, the musical, I was too familiar with the Phantom already. Everyone knows what werewolves are, and the Invisible Man is pretty straightforward. And The Creature from the Black Lagoon it draws you in because it's really cool in the context of all these movies to see the underwater shots. But whereas people know about mummies, the fact that this movie depends on a lot of legend and mythology and history so that you have the context for what mummies are. It's not just that you see a person wrapped in bandages, it's that there's a curse and all that. I didn't find this movie interesting. It moves slowly and steadily and very creepily, it turns out, but that wasn't enough to get me back then. This time around, I really liked it, and from what I recall of the 5 of those 8 that I haven't already watched, this might be among one of my favorites now, even though it was not my thing back then. We'll see when I get to the end of those 8, and we'll see if maybe one of the other 22 surpasses it, including, looks like 6 more Mummy movies. But a big part of it was, of course, Boris Karloff, I mentioned last night, as Frankenstein's monster. No lines, a few grunts, great performance. In this one, he actually has lines, and he's really nice and creepy. And the story, not based on a specific thing, although echoes of an Arthur Conan Doyle story called The Ring of Thoth, or something like that, which I haven't seen, and inspired by a couple other things like the recent opening of Tutankhamun's tomb. And the idea of the Curse of the Pharaohs, where if you disturb a mummy, you get cursed, especially if it's a pharaoh. But no single thing inspired the movie, and so it was essentially an original story, and it was also essentially their version of Dracula, which is not really the novel, although elements of the novel, but their own streamlined, simplified version of it. And this was another version of Dracula, but he was not another version of Bela Lugosi's Dracula. Bela Lugosi's Dracula was trying to charm people, trying to blend in as like a vampire. He was not interested in impressing anybody. The Imhotep character, which was he was kind of the main character. I was used to in the 1999 version, which I love. The mummy is not nearly as developed as a character. He's more of a monster, purely a monster. Whereas in this, it's kind of his story, and he has a lot of dialogue with the other characters and chanting into his pool. Um, and you see him sneaking around and accomplishing things. So that was an interesting element. But there's a Dracula-ish love story. There is a Dracula-ish uh, climactic scene, climactic chase, and there's a Dracula-ish um, Edward Van Sloan. This time, not playing Dr. Van Helsing or whoever he played in Frankenstein, but playing Dr. Muller. But essentially the same role as Dr. Van Helsing and whoever he played in Frankenstein, the one who knows what's going on in supernaturally, from the expert who knows the history and who has the charms and the equipment to fight the supernatural. So there you have it. There is it's a connected universe. He is, I don't know if he's in any of the other movies, but he's in these three, and he's essentially the same guy. So you get a sense of pattern. It's all a connected universe. I don't know. It's the first cinematic universe in many ways. I don't know if it would be cool if he shows up again. I don't know that he will, but we'll see. Most of these movies I'm seeing for the first time. I'm curious to see where the next 6 Mummy movies go. It's not like, again, it's not like these other movies, Dracula, Frankenstein, The Phantom of the Opera, where I have loved them so much that I've delved in and I've learned a lot more about the history, the inspiration behind them. I have never been that interested in ancient Egypt. It's cool, but I haven't studied it or gone deep into it or gotten into even the lore of the movies, even though, again, I love the 1999 version. So I have no idea where it's going. I have no idea where most of the movies are going, but especially no idea where this is going. So that'll be interesting to see. I loved one of the, like I mentioned, the Creature from the Black Lagoon, the underwater shots were revolutionary. I don't know how revolutionary it was, but whereas Dracula and Frankenstein seemed to be mostly filmed on sets, I don't know if they went to Egypt, but it seemed like they were somewhere. Like they were filming great outdoor sweeping sets, sweeping landscapes that, the sort of thing that evolved into Lawrence of Arabia and that sort of sweeping landscape shots. So that was nice, especially in beautiful black and white, and yeah. So lots of it's interesting to kind of see the evolution of how they were doing things with their monster movies, and how and the chances they take as they go into year 2. So I think that's pretty much it from what I wanted to mention about it. Yeah, tomorrow is The Invisible Man, and I will also be watching this year's version of The Invisible Man with Elizabeth Moss. So I've been looking forward to seeing that. And yeah, so have a pleasant midnight, and I will return tomorrow. While Some Words with a Mummy by Edgar Allan Poe really has very little to do, if not nothing to do with this movie, that is the mummy story that I chose to read into the computer and then put on YouTube in 4 parts. So part 1 was today, and as the other mummy movies come up on the schedule, I'll post the rest of it. Very different tone than this movie and presumably the other movies, but I found it quite amusing. And may well do something else with it at some point. But in the meantime, again, have a pleasant midnight, and see you tomorrow.